Darren walked along the narrow path that led to the mountain quarry, feeling the wind push against his back as if urging him forward. The sun was dipping behind the rocky cliffs, and the air carried the cold bite of early evening. He kept one hand on the rough stone wall beside him, and the other gently on the side of the large creature walking at his shoulder. The creature was Lyria, his dragon mate. Her silver scales shimmered faintly, but even in the fading light he could see how dull they had become. She was tired. Her steps were slower than usual, and she often paused to breathe. Her wings hung low, dragging slightly as if they no longer had the strength to stay lifted. She was hungry. And pregnant. That was why they were here. Darren glanced at her with worry. "Just a little more," he whispered. "We'll get help soon." Lyria blinked at him in a slow, warm way, the way she always did when she understood him. She lowered her head and touched her muzzle to his shoulder for a brief second. Before continuing the climb, the quarry finally came into view. It was an old worksite carved into the mountain, where humans cut stone blocks and loaded them onto trucks. It had become a place where Darren worked during the season, but he had never once imagined bringing a dragon here. He knew what people would think. Humans feared dragons. To them, dragons were too large, too powerful, too unpredictable. Everyone had heard old stories about dragons burning fields or attacking travelers. Most humans never met a dragon in real life, yet the fear lived deep in them. Darren kept walking, leading Lyria around a bend. Below them, workers were finishing their shift. Sparks flew from metal cutters, and echoes bounced between the rocky walls. A few men were stacking crates, while others washed dust from the ground with long hoses. They were loud, busy, and unaware that their evening was about to change. When Darren and Lyria stepped into view, the first shout rose almost instantly. "Dragon!" Every tool dropped. Sparks died. A hose hit the ground and sprayed wildly. People ran in every direction, shouting warnings and scrambling behind machinery, as if hiding behind a crate could protect them from a creature with wings big enough to block the sun. Lyria froze, lifting her head. Her eyes widened. Fear and confusion flashed through her posture. She took a step back, and her wings twitched as if she was ready to flee. Darren reached for her reassuringly. "It's okay. Don't worry. They're just scared." He held out his hands toward the workers. "It's all right. She's not dangerous. Please don't panic." But the panic continued until a tall man stepped out from behind a stack of stone blocks. His face was worn from years of work, his clothes coated in dust and grit. He was the foreman, the one in charge of the quarry. He didn't run like the others. He didn't scream. He stared, but his eyes were sharp, not afraid. "Darren," he said slowly, "what in the world have you brought here?" Darren swallowed hard. "I can explain." The foreman crossed his arms. "You'd better, because right now half my workers think the mountain is about to collapse, and the other half think that dragon is going to roast us." Lyria stood behind Darren, lowering her body slightly, trying to appear smaller than she was. She wasn't used to loud human voices. She wasn't used to fear directed at her. Darren stepped forward. "She's pregnant and hungry. She hasn't eaten for days. I didn't know where else to go. I knew the quarry sometimes feeds injured work animals, like the old mules we used years ago. I thought maybe you could help us for tonight." The foreman raised a brow. "Pregnant, yes. And hungry, yes. And you brought her here, to a human quarry." Darren nodded, feeling heat rise to his face. "I didn't have another choice." For a long moment, the foreman said nothing. The workers peeked out from behind equipment, whispering among themselves, waiting for him to shout or call for help, or order everyone to evacuate. But he didn't. He stepped closer to Lyria, not too close, but enough to see her struggling to stand. Enough to see how thin she had become. Enough to see she was no threat right now. His voice softened a little. She's in bad shape. Darren looked at Lyria with worry etched into every part of him. I know. The foreman rubbed his chin. You understand what you're asking, right? If someone reports this, the authorities will be here in minutes. Dragons near human zones are considered a serious threat. They won't listen to your story. I know, Darren whispered. But she needs help, and I can't watch her suffer. The foreman let out a slow breath. It wasn't an angry breath, more like a tired one, the kind someone makes when they're about to take a risk they never planned for. Finally, he turned around and waved his hand at the workers. Everyone calmed down. She's not attacking, and she's not here to cause trouble. The workers stared at him as if he had lost his mind. One man shouted nervously, Sir, that's a dragon. I can see that, the foreman replied. But right now she's a hungry dragon, not an angry one. Big difference. Lyria lowered her head again, watching the humans cautiously. She could sense their fear, and it made her uneasy. She took another slow breath, but even that seemed difficult for her. Aaron stepped closer to the foreman. Please, I know it's asking a lot, but she needs food. Just something to get her strength back. After that, we'll leave. The foreman looked from Darren to Lyria, and then back again. Something in his expression changed. His voice wasn't strict anymore. It sounded almost human, almost gentle. Follow me, he said quietly. Let's see what we can do. The workers watched with disbelief as the foreman led Darren and Lyria deeper into the quarry. The air grew quieter as they walked. Machines shut down. People stepped aside, giving the dragon as much space as possible. Lyria moved slowly, her tail dragging a bit behind her. She was exhausted, but she trusted Darren. She watched the humans with timid curiosity. She didn't understand why they feared her so much. She had never harmed a human. Darren placed his hand on her shoulder again. You're doing great. Just a little longer. As they approached the back storage area, the foreman motioned toward a stack of old crates. We keep leftover scraps here. Some meat from the mess hall, old preserves, a few things our supply team never picked up. Darren's eyes filled with relief. Thank you, truly. The foreman shook his head. Don't thank me yet. Feeding a dragon is going to bring attention. Someone will notice. Someone always does. He looked at Lyria once more. Let's hope this doesn't turn into trouble bigger than the both of you. Darren nodded quietly. He didn't know that this simple act of kindness would change everything. He didn't know it would trigger events that neither humans nor dragons were prepared for. He only knew one thing. Lyria needed help. And tonight, this was the only place willing to give it. The air in the storage area smelled of old wood, dust, and faint traces of dried meat. It wasn't much, but Darren knew it would be enough to give Lyria some strength. He guided her carefully between the stacks of crates, making sure her tail didn't knock anything over. The foreman, Roland, watched silently as Darren laid out the food. There were scraps of cooked meat, some grains, a few dried fruits, and water in a large trough. For a dragon, it was small, but for a hungry, pregnant dragon, it was a lifeline. Lyria sniffed at the offerings. Her nostrils flared as the smells hit her. She lowered her massive head to the ground and took a small bite. Darren relaxed when he saw her start eating. She's eating, he whispered. That's good. That's really good. Roland stayed a few steps back. He had never been this close to a dragon before. Never this close to one that seemed calm and gentle. He had seen dragons in old propaganda posters, in warnings, and in stories. They were always dangerous, always wild. But Lyria, she was different. Darren watched Lyria eat, keeping his hand close, ready to comfort her if she panicked. "Take your time," he said softly. "There's plenty. Eat as much as you need." The foreman's voice broke the quiet. "How long have you had her?" Darren looked up, his mouth full of concern. "A few months. I found her after she was injured. Poachers had caught her in the forest. She couldn't move properly, and she was starving. I couldn't leave her there." Roland nodded slowly. "You risked your life for her. That's unusual. Most humans wouldn't even try." Darren didn't answer immediately. He wasn't proud of being different. He was just glad she survived. I couldn't let her die. She wasn't dangerous. She never hurt anyone. Not me, not the forest animals, not the people who scared her before." Lyria lifted her head slightly, her silver eyes watching the humans cautiously. Darren gave her a gentle pat, and she leaned into his touch. She trusted him, and that trust gave him strength he didn't know he had. Roland's eyes softened, but he still looked worried. "Do you know what this could mean?" he asked. "If anyone finds out you're feeding a dragon here, they'll come. Soldiers, officials, people who think dragons are a threat. You could be in big trouble." Darren swallowed. "I know. I didn't think of that. I wanted to make sure she was safe tonight. That's all." Roland let out a slow breath. "Tonight might be fine, but this could bring attention. And attention isn't always good." Darren didn't argue. He couldn't. He only hoped that feeding Lyria would be enough for now. He hoped no one would notice. For a few minutes they stayed in silence, watching Lyria eat. She was careful, polite even, and her large claws barely scratched the floor. She wasn't trying to scare anyone. She just wanted to eat. Finally, Roland spoke again. "You said she's pregnant." "Yes," Darren replied. "She's carrying a clutch. I can feel it when she rests her head on my shoulder. She's weak, though. She hasn't been able to hunt much since she became heavy. That's why we came here." Roland nodded slowly, studying Lyria as she continued to eat. "I've seen animals struggle before," he said quietly. "Horses, mules, dogs. But I've never seen a dragon like this. Not up close. Not one that cares about humans." Darren smiled faintly. "She does. She trusts me. She listens to me. She would never hurt anyone who doesn't threaten her." The foreman let the words sink in. "That's unusual. You humans are taught to fear dragons from Earth. And dragons, they're usually taught to fight to survive. But you've made her different. And she trusts you. That's something else entirely." Darren looked down, feeling a little embarrassed. "I didn't make her different. She was always like this. I helped her. That's all." Roland looked at him with a mix of curiosity and respect. Helping her took courage. "I don't know if I could do that. I'd probably have run the other way." Darren shook his head. "You'd be surprised. If you meet the right creature, if you understand them. Sometimes fear isn't stronger than kindness." The dragon's gentle hum filled the air as she continued eating. The sound was almost musical, a low vibration that Darren could feel through the soles of his boots. It was calming, even for the humans who were used to noise and machinery. Roland finally stepped closer. "She's going to need more than this to regain strength. Do you have a plan?" Darren thought for a moment. I didn't plan beyond tonight. I just wanted her to eat." Roland nodded slowly. "Sometimes that's enough. One step at a time. One meal at a time. You're lucky she trusts you. Most dragons wouldn't even come this close to humans." Lyria lifted her head again, her silver eyes meeting Roland's. For a moment, it felt like she was studying him, judging whether he could be trusted. Roland froze. He hadn't expected this, and he realized she could see fear. hesitation or honesty in him. Finally, she lowered her head and nuzzled the food again, ignoring him. Roland exhaled. Darren smiled. See? She knows who's safe. The foreman watched for a few more minutes, then looked at Darren seriously. You realize feeding her here might trigger more than just attention. If someone smells her or notices her, they might call soldiers. Or worse, people who want to capture her. You're playing with fire. Darren nodded. I know. I didn't think about that. I didn't know where else to go. Roland's expression softened. You did what you thought was right. That's all anyone can do. But tonight, we have to be careful. Don't let her get too tired. Keep her calm. Keep her close. And maybe keep this quiet until we figure out what to do next. Aaron agreed. He knelt beside Lyria, stroking her long, scaly neck. She leaned against him, her body relaxing as she ate. The sound of her chewing, the vibration through the ground, was almost hypnotic. It reminded Darren why he had come here in the first place, minutes past. Lyria ate, slowly but steadily. Darren kept her company, talking softly, reassuring her. He didn't notice the time passing, or the curious glances of the workers peeking from the storage area entrance. They whispered among themselves, astonished at what they were seeing. She's really calm, one worker murmured. Yeah, another replied. I thought she'd burn the place down the moment she saw us. Roland shook his head. You don't understand. This dragon? She's different. And the human with her, he's different too. Darren finally looked up at the foreman. Thank you. I know this is risky. I know I shouldn't have brought her here. Roland gave a small shrug. Sometimes the right thing isn't the safe thing. Just make sure you're ready for the consequences. Lyria finished the last of the scraps and dipped her head into the water trough. She drank deeply, her tongue lapping at the water carefully. Darren and Roland exchanged a glance. She was getting stronger, slowly, but they both knew tonight was only the beginning. She's still weak, Darren said quietly. We need to think about tomorrow. How we'll feed her. How we'll keep her safe. Roland nodded. Tomorrow is tomorrow. For tonight, she's alive. She's fed. And she's calm. That's more than enough. The dragon let out a low, satisfied hum. Darren felt the vibrations through the ground. He smiled. See? She's happy. Roland looked at Darren, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. You've done something most humans couldn't even imagine. You've earned her trust. And maybe, just maybe, you've earned mine too. Darren felt a warm rush of relief. It wasn't much, but it was enough for now. Enough to know that tonight, at least, Lyria was safe. And tomorrow they would figure out the rest, together. The night deepened around them. The quarry grew quiet. Machines stopped humming, and the stars began to appear above the mountain peaks. Lyria rested her head on Darren's shoulder, closing her eyes for the first time since their long journey. For Darren, it was a moment of peace. A moment where fear and danger seemed distant, replaced by trust, care, and a fragile hope that they could face whatever came next together. The night grew darker, and the cool mountain air settled over the quarry. Darren stayed close to Lyria, sitting on an old crate, while she rested her massive body on the ground. Her breathing was steady now, but Darren could feel the heaviness in her chest and in her stomach. The pregnancy was taking its toll, and even with the food she had eaten, her energy would not return instantly. Roland, the foreman, had returned to his small office nearby, but he kept one eye on the pair. He had been working in the quarry for over 20 years and had seen almost everything: rockslides, accidents, and disputes among workers. But this was something entirely new. A dragon, calm and trusting, lying among humans as if it belonged there. It was unlike anything he had ever imagined. He stepped outside and looked at Darren and Lyria. "You know," he said softly, "I still can't believe you brought her here." Darren gave a small shrug. "I didn't have anywhere else to go. The forest is dangerous for her now. Predators know she's carrying eggs. Poachers, they could find her. I couldn't risk it." Roland nodded. "I get it. I really do. But you're lucky. Most people would have panicked or worse, tried to drive her away. You might have been attacked." Darren smiled faintly, looking down at Lyria. "She trusts me. She trusts me enough to come here. I thought maybe humans could help, even if just for a little while." The dragon lifted her head slightly and met Roland's gaze. There was something in her eyes, an understanding, a kind of intelligence that made Roland pause. It was as if she was aware of everything happening, judging who could be trusted and who could not. Roland felt a shiver run down his spine. "She knows," Darren said quietly. "She knows who's safe." Roland exhaled slowly. "I suppose that's true. But you've made a big risk bringing her here. Do you know what could happen if someone discovers her? Soldiers, officials, people who think dragons are dangerous. You could be in serious trouble." "I know," Darren replied. "I didn't think about that. I only thought about tonight, keeping her safe, letting her eat." Roland walked closer, his boots crunching on the gravel. "You've done something most humans wouldn't dare to do. Feeding a dragon, protecting a dragon. It's not just courage. It's something else. Something I can't quite name." Darren looked up at him, curious. "What do you mean?" Roland shook his head. "I mean, most people see dragons as monsters. Dangerous, untouchable, wild. But you see her differently. You see her as a living being, as someone who needs help, and you acted on it. That's rare." Darren felt a flush of warmth in his chest. "I didn't do it for praise. I couldn't leave her to suffer. That's all." Lyria let out a low hum, her long tail curling slightly around Darren's legs. The vibration was soothing, almost like a gentle rumble of contentment. Roland watched, fascinated. He had read about dragon behavior, studied old records and illustrations, but nothing compared to seeing it in real life. "Do you think she'll be okay?" Roland asked finally, his voice quieter. Darren nodded. "For tonight, yes. She's eaten, she's drinking. She's calm. But she need more help soon. And not just food. Safety, warmth, rest. Someone who understands her." Roland studied the dragon. "I've never seen a dragon like this. She's different. Calm, gentle, aware. And the way she trusts you, it's remarkable." Darren smiled faintly, brushing his hand along her shimmering scales. "She's always been gentle. I helped her feel safe. That's all." Roland shook his head. "There's more to it than that. Trust like this doesn't come easily. You've earned it, and that's not something everyone can do. Most humans would never even try." For a few moments, the three of them remained silent. The air was still, except for the distant hum of machines that had been turned off for the night. Stars were beginning to appear above the mountain peaks, twinkling faintly in the cold air. Aaron let his eyes wander over Lyria's massive body. He could see the subtle movements of her stomach as she breathed, the gentle rise and fall that reminded him she was carrying new life. He felt a mixture of awe and responsibility. The eggs she carried were fragile, precious, and would need protection until the time came. "You know," Roland said after a while, breaking the silence, "you might have triggered something bigger than you realize." Darren frowned. "What do you mean?" Roland walked closer to the dragon and gestured with his hand. Having a dragon here, in human territory, it's not just about you or her. People will notice eventually. Even if no one sees her tonight, the smell, the movement. Dragons don't go unnoticed for long. Someone will find out, and not everyone will be kind. Darren swallowed. I didn't think about that. I only thought about keeping her alive. I understand, Roland said gently. I really do. But you need to be prepared. Helping her might bring attention. Attention could be dangerous. And if that happens, you'll need allies. Darren looked at the foreman. Allies? Who? Roland shrugged. Not everyone is afraid of dragons. Not everyone sees them as a threat. But you'll need people who can help you if things get difficult. People who understand that she's not dangerous. That she's special. Darren nodded slowly. I'll think about that. But for now, tonight, I just want her to rest. Roland smiled faintly. Fair enough. Rest is important, especially for her. And for you too. You've been walking for hours, guiding her. You need strength as much as she does. Darren glanced down at her. I'll stay with her. She feels safer when I'm nearby. Roland's gaze softened. I can see that. And that's probably the only reason she trusts any human at all. You've shown her that humans can care. That humans can protect. That's not something many of us can say. The dragon let out another low hum, curling slightly closer to Darren. He reached out and ran his hand along her head, feeling the warmth beneath her scales. She closed her eyes, letting him comfort her. Tomorrow, Roland said quietly, we'll need to think about the next steps. How to feed her, keep her safe, maybe even prepare a place for her to lay her eggs. If anyone sees her here again, we might not get another chance. Darren nodded. I understand. I'll follow your lead. The foreman studied the dragon for a moment longer. You've done something remarkable tonight. I can't promise it will stay quiet, but we'll try. For her sake and for yours. Darren smiled faintly, feeling a mixture of relief and apprehension. Thank you. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't helped. Roland shook his head. Don't thank me yet. Tonight, yes. Tomorrow, we'll see. Dragons are unpredictable. Even the gentle ones can react if threatened. We need to be ready. Lyria shifted slightly, sensing the tension in the air. Darren placed a reassuring hand on her neck. It's okay. You're safe. I'll protect you. The night deepened, and the stars grew brighter above the mountains. The air was cold, but inside the storage area, there was a fragile warmth. A human and a dragon, together in an unexpected alliance. One night of rest, of calm, of trust. One night that might change everything. Darren knew this was only the beginning. Tomorrow, challenges would come. People would notice. Questions would arise. But tonight, at least, Lyria was safe. And as long as she was safe, he could face whatever came next. He looked down at her resting form, her silver scales glinting faintly in the dim light. She breathed slowly and evenly, her hum vibrating softly against the stone floor. He whispered, Tomorrow, we'll find a way. You'll be safe. I promise. For now, that promise was enough. For now, they rested. The morning sun rose slowly over the mountain, casting long shadows across the quarry. Darren had stayed beside Lyria through the night, watching her rest and making sure she was comfortable. Her breathing had been steady all night, and for the first time in days, she seemed calm and relaxed. Darren stretched and rubbed his eyes. The events of the previous night felt surreal. He had never imagined that he would be sitting in a human quarry, taking care of a pregnant dragon. And yet, here he was, and Lyria was alive. That was what mattered most. He looked down at her, her silver scales gleaming in the early sunlight. She lifted her head and blinked slowly, giving him the gentle recognition he had come to know. Darren reached out and stroked her neck. "Good morning," he whispered. "Did you sleep well?" She let out a soft hum, a vibration that he could feel through the ground. It was her way of saying yes. Darren smiled faintly. He knew she still felt weak, but at least she had rest. Roland, the foreman, appeared at the storage area entrance. He had been watching quietly from a distance, making sure that no workers got too close to the dragon. His face was serious, and Darren could tell that he was thinking about more than just feeding her. "You need to eat something," Roland said quietly. "You've been on your feet for hours, and you'll need strength if we're going to get through today." Darren shook his head. "I'll be fine. I need to make sure she's okay first." Roland raised an eyebrow. "And what happens if someone notices her while you're busy?" "You can't stay here forever." Darren frowned. He knew the foreman was right. Dragons didn't go unnoticed, especially not in areas where humans worked. The moment someone smelled her, or heard her breathing, or saw her scales glinting in the sun, there would be questions. And not all questions were harmless. "I know," he admitted, "but I can't leave her alone. She's too weak." Roland sighed. "Then we need a plan. If anyone comes, we'll need to act quickly. We can't risk her getting scared or hurt." Darren nodded. He didn't know what the day would bring, but he trusted Roland. If anyone could help him protect Lyria, it was him. They were still talking when a distant sound reached them, the low rumble of engines. At first, Darren thought it was part of the quarry's machinery, but then he realized it was different. Louder, heavier. Something was coming up the mountain road. Roland stiffened. "That's not our trucks," he muttered. Darren's heart began to race. Who could it be? Roland frowned. Soldiers, most likely. Someone's noticed a dragon in the area. Or maybe someone reported it. Either way, it's not good. Darren felt a wave of panic. Lyria was still weak, her body not ready to defend herself if things turned violent. "We have to hide her," he said urgently. Roland shook his head. "There's no time for that. If soldiers are coming, hiding her won't be enough. You need to keep her calm. That's all you can do right now." Darren knelt beside Lyria, placing a hand on her head. "It's okay," he whispered. "Stay calm. Everything will be fine." The rumble grew louder, and soon a convoy of human vehicles appeared on the mountain road. Soldiers stepped out, their armor shining in the sunlight, their expressions hard and suspicious. Darren could see the tension in their movements. They were trained to respond to threats, and right now, a dragon in a human quarry was their definition of danger. Roland stepped forward to meet them. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. "This is a quarry, not a battlefield." The lead soldier pointed toward Lyria. "There's a dragon here," he said sharply. "We've received reports. Stand back. We are authorized to capture or neutralize it." Darren felt his stomach tighten. He looked down at Lyria, who was now alert, her ears twitching at the sound of their voices. She could sense their fear and aggression. Her body tensed slightly, and Darren reached out, holding her gently. "Stay calm," he whispered again. "Don't respond. Don't react." Roland's voice was firm. "She's not attacking. She's not dangerous. She's weak and pregnant. You need to understand that before you do anything rash." The soldiers hesitated for a moment, but their training made them impatient. "Dragons are dangerous by nature," one of them said. "We cannot take chances." Darren's heart pounded. He could feel Lyria shifting under his hand, the vibrations of her hum growing faintly anxious. He knew she could sense the soldiers' tension. If she panicked, no one here would be safe. He took a deep breath. "She's not dangerous," he said firmly. "She trusts me." She will not attack anyone who doesn't threaten her. The lead soldier's eyes narrowed. Trust doesn't matter. Dragons are unpredictable. We will secure her, and anyone in the way is at risk. Darren felt a surge of fear and determination. He had never faced humans like this before, soldiers who saw dragons only as threats, but he knew he couldn't let them harm her. "Please," he said. "She is pregnant. She cannot defend herself. If you provoke her, it will be your fault." Lyria shifted slightly, her wings twitching. Darren placed his hand gently on her side, letting her feel his calm presence. "Stay calm," he murmured. "Trust me." Roland stepped forward again. "Listen to him. She's not dangerous. You will see that if you approach carefully. I've worked here for years. I've seen a lot, and I know this dragon is not a threat." The soldiers hesitated, but their training made them slow to accept anything that didn't fit their understanding. Darren could feel Lyria's tension rising. Her body vibrated faintly, a low warning hum that only he could fully understand. He held her head gently. "It's okay," he whispered. "I'm here. You don't need to fight." Suddenly, Lyria let out a soft, resonant pulse, a hum that vibrated through the stone floor and into the air. It wasn't loud or violent, but it was instinctive. She was sending a signal, a warning, a call. Darren felt it through his hands and knew it was her natural response to danger. The soldiers froze. They could hear it, feel it, but they didn't understand it. Roland frowned. "She's not attacking," he said urgently. "She's just scared. Step back." Lyria's hum continued, faint but steady. Darren could see other dragons in the distance, flying above the mountains. They had heard her signal. The sky was slowly filling with silhouettes, dragons circling, observing, waiting. Darren's heart pounded. He hadn't intended to summon others. He only wanted to feed her, to keep her safe. But now, the presence of the soldiers had triggered a response he could not control. Roland shouted to the soldiers, "Stand down. She's pregnant and weak. You cannot provoke her." Some soldiers hesitated, unsure what to do. Others gripped their weapons tighter. Darren could feel the tension in the air, a delicate balance between fear and trust. One wrong move, and the situation could explode. He reached out to Lyria again, holding her head. "It's okay," he said softly. "Stay calm. Nothing will happen if you trust me." The dragons in the sky shifted, some landing on distant cliffs, watching. Lyria's hum became slightly stronger, protective but not aggressive. Darren felt a shiver run through him as he realized the full weight of what was happening. They were not alone. Other dragons were aware, and they were watching. Roland stepped closer to the soldiers. "Do you see that? She is not attacking. She is calling for protection, not aggression. You need to understand this before you make a mistake." The lead soldier's face was hard. "We don't have the luxury of misunderstanding. Dragons are dangerous." Darren shook his head. "You are wrong. She is not dangerous. Not unless you force her to be." The tension in the air was almost unbearable. Darren could feel Lyria trembling slightly. He whispered to her again, letting her feel his calm presence. "It's okay. Trust me. We'll get through this." The soldiers took a step back, unsure how to respond to the unusual scene. The dragons in the mountains continued to observe, silent and watchful. The situation hung by a thread. One sudden move, and it could all fall apart. Darren knew he had to stay calm. He had to be the anchor for Lyria, and he had to trust that Roland's experience and quick thinking could help them navigate what was coming. For now, they waited, hearts pounding. The fate of the quarry and everyone in it balanced on the fragile trust between a human and a dragon. The air above the quarry had grown tense and still. Darren could feel the weight of it pressing down, a mixture of fear, anticipation, and uncertainty. Lyria remained close to him, her massive body trembling faintly with the residual stress from the soldiers' arrival. Her eyes darted toward the edges of the quarry, as if trying to see the world beyond the human constructs. Darren whispered to her, keeping his voice calm and steady. "It's okay. Nothing is going to happen as long as you stay calm. I'm right here." The vibrations of her hum were still there, low and soft, but growing stronger. Darren felt it through the ground, felt the way it resonated in the stone and in the air around him. He had never felt anything like it before. Roland stepped closer, his face drawn and serious. "You didn't expect this, did you?" he said quietly. Darren shook his head. "No, I only wanted her to eat and rest." I didn't think this would happen." Roland studied Lyria. "She's sending a signal," he said. "Not just to the soldiers. To other dragons." Darren's eyes widened. "Other dragons?" "Yes," Roland replied. "She's calling them, warning them, alerting them that she's in danger." Darren's stomach sank. He had not intended for this. He only wanted to feed her, keep her safe, give her strength. But now, by being here, they had triggered something bigger than either of them could control. The sound of wings filled the air, first distant, then growing louder as silhouettes appeared against the morning sky. Dragons, many dragons, circling above the mountains. Some perched on cliffs, some flying closer, curious but cautious. Darren could see their shapes gliding through the sunlit air, their scales catching the light in flashes of silver and gold. Lyria stiffened. Darren placed a hand on her neck. "It's okay. They're not here to hurt you," he said softly. "I promise. Stay calm." The soldiers tensed, weapons raised, unsure of what to do. Their eyes followed the dragons above, some pointing, some whispering to one another. Darren realized that they were completely unprepared for what was happening. Dragons were rarely seen, and groups of them, even less so. Roland stepped forward, trying to mediate. "Stand down," he shouted. "They are not attacking. She is pregnant and weak. She is calling for protection, not war." Some soldiers hesitated, lowering their weapons slightly. Others gripped their rifles tighter, uncertainty written across their faces. Darren knelt beside Lyria, keeping his hand on her neck. He could feel her heartbeat, rapid but controlled. "It's okay," he whispered. "I'm here. Nothing will happen." The dragons above shifted, some landing on distant cliffs, some hovering closer, their large wings cutting through the air with precision and grace. They were aware, alert, and protective. Darren realized that Lyria's signal had been understood. This was not just a cry for help. It was a call to protect her and her unborn young. He glanced at Roland. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he said. "I just wanted her to eat." Roland's expression was serious. "Sometimes the right action sets off things you cannot control. Now we have to manage it. Calm her, keep her safe, and make sure no one provokes the soldiers or the dragons." Darren swallowed hard. "How?" "By staying calm yourself," Roland said. "Dragons respond to emotion. If you panic, she will panic. If you're steady, she will trust you." Darren took a deep breath. He focused on Lyria's eyes, speaking softly. "Look at me. You're safe. Nothing will hurt you while I'm here. Breathe with me." She leaned slightly into him, trusting him. Her vibrations softened, but were still present, a warning pulse that could be felt more than heard. Darren could sense her awareness of every movement, every sound. She was scanning the area, deciding who was friend and who was threat. The soldiers began to murmur among themselves. Some of them lowered their weapons completely, unsure how to respond. One of them spoke hesitantly. "Sir, what if we just wait?" Maybe they'll leave? Roland shook his head. No, we can't assume anything. You're trained to react, but this is different. Be patient. Do not provoke them. Let me handle the communication. Darren felt a strange mix of fear and awe. Dragons were circling, but they were not attacking. They were protecting. It was a demonstration of their instincts, of their intelligence, of their ability to understand danger without needing words. Lyria lifted her head slightly, focusing on the lead soldiers. Darren could feel the low vibration of her pulse increase, a soft hum that traveled through the stone floor. She was warning them, communicating in her own way. Do not move, do not provoke, or there will be consequences. One soldier flinched. His weapon shook slightly in his hands. Darren reached out and placed his hand on Lyria's head again. It's okay, he murmured. They're not here to hurt you. I promise. Just breathe. The dragons above shifted slightly, some landing on higher cliffs, observing. Others hovered closer, their large eyes following every movement in the quarry. Darren realized that they were waiting to see if she was truly threatened, or if this was just a human misunderstanding. Roland spoke to the soldiers again. Look at her. She is not aggressive. She is vulnerable. If you provoke her, it will be your own fault. Step back and observe. Slowly, some soldiers lowered their weapons. Others remained tense, unwilling to risk disobedience. Darren could feel the tension in the air like electricity, thick and heavy. He kept his hand on Lyria's head, feeling the warmth of her scales. I'm here. It's okay. Nothing will happen. The hum from her body grew slightly stronger, a protective signal, and then, as if responding, the dragons in the sky shifted closer, landing on cliffs and rocks surrounding the quarry. Darren realized that they were forming a perimeter, ensuring her safety without engaging. He glanced at Roland. I didn't mean for this, he said quietly. Roland shook his head. Intentions don't change consequences. But now we manage it. Keep her calm. Do not panic. That's all we can do. Minutes passed. The tension slowly began to ease, but the soldiers were still cautious. They had never encountered anything like this dragons, protective and intelligent, circling above, waiting, observing, but not attacking. Darren felt his own heart rate slow as he focused on keeping Lyria calm. Finally, she lowered her head slightly, settling back against him. The vibration of her hum softened, but it remained, a quiet warning to the world around them. Darren exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. Roland looked at him. You did well. You kept her calm. That's all that mattered. If she had panicked, well, it would have been disaster. Darren nodded, still holding on to Lyria. I didn't know they'd come. I didn't know this would happen. Roland's expression softened. You couldn't have known. You acted out of care, and that's what counts. But now we have to think carefully. This can't be ignored. Other humans will notice. And the dragons, they won't forget. Darren's stomach tightened. He realized that this was only the beginning. Lyria was safe for now, but the events of today would have consequences. The dragons above were aware, protective, and intelligent. The humans below were wary, afraid, and uncertain. He looked down at Lyria, who rested her head on his shoulder. She was breathing steadily again, her hum soft and calm. For the moment, at least, they had survived the danger together. Darren whispered, Tomorrow, we'll figure out what to do next. I promise. Nothing will hurt you. Roland nodded. Yes, tomorrow we plan. Tonight, you rest. She rests. And we prepare for what comes next. The quarry grew quiet. The soldiers withdrew slightly, watching from a distance. The dragons remained perched on cliffs, vigilant but patient. Darren held Lyria close, feeling the warmth of her body and the strength of her trust. For now, they were safe. For now, the moment belonged to them. But tomorrow, the real challenges would come. And Darren knew, without a doubt, that he would face them. Not alone. Not without Lyria. Together, they would endure whatever came next, whatever storms the world might bring.